there was a piece by Alex McGill, and I've been trying to get him. I don't know why that's not doable, but on what Ben Carson has been up to at HUD. And I just recently ran into a guy who works as a housing lawyer. And he said that already there's been shifted funds away from providing legal representation for people in these instances. And here is a clip of Representative Al Green from Houston, Texas. This is the House Financial Services Committee meeting. This took place yesterday. And I would imagine, among other things, just generally, as a congressman, you want to know some things about what's happening with HUD because you have people in your district who rely on HUD services in one form or another. Also, I would imagine in the wake of the hurricane season there, that becomes even more acute. Here's Ben Carson, who not only comes into this hearing like woefully unprepared, and we can talk about why that's the case after the fact, but also incapable of conceding even in the most benign way that he's unprepared, right? Like you can come in and say like, that's a good question, sir. I'm going to get back to you on that. But he won't even say that because he's so arrogant.
Dr. Carson, sir, you have indicated that there will be substantial cuts to the budget that HUD has. Can you give me that dollar amount? I'm showing that it's about $6 billion. Is that correct?
That's about right.
Is that about 13% of the budget?
Yes.
And will these cuts, Mr. Carson, come from public housing, housing vouchers, community development block grants, and other aid to low-income persons?
They come from a variety of sources, including...
How much from public housing, Mr. Carson?
Probably in the neighborhood of, if you combine all the programs, $2 to $3 billion.
$2 to $3 billion.
Ballpark.
How much from housing vouchers, Mr. Carson?
Rather than go through a quiz on all the numbers...
It's not a quiz, Mr. Carson. I have the time to ask you questions about things that you should have some knowledge of. If you have no knowledge of them, you can simply say so. I'll accept it as an answer. But this is something that's within your bailiwick, my dear sir. How much from housing vouchers?
Again, I can give you that number, but...
Well, if you would give it to me, I would greatly appreciate it because I'd like to go on to community development block grants.
Well, here's my point. I agree with you that it's difficult to do these things.
That has little to do with my question. You're answering a question that I'm not asking, to be quite candid with you. So would you kindly tell me how much HUD how much you're going to cut from the HUD budget
Pause
as it
it for one
relates to
second.
housing?
I mean, you know what occurs to me during the middle of this, where you're asking the secretary of a department, you're cutting your budget by almost 15%. In fact, I don't know if I question whether or not Ben Carson even knew that. Because it was Al Green who said to him, "You're cutting your budget by $6 billion." Is that right? Yeah.
I like your music, but I
13%.
don't like your congressionalism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thereabouts.
But what
it.
this reminds me of is when someone like Rick Perry says we need to cut 3 agencies. This one, that one, and I can't remember the third. And the idea is that there's no thought going into this. There's no strategy. There's no policy. There's no like, this is wasteful or that. This is just, these people don't care.
Well, agree to disagree. Mr. Bannon said he wanted to bring back bum fighting in a big way. Maybe that's strategy.
The bottom line is they might as well just say like, you know what we did? We lit 7 buildings on fire. And whichever ones burned to the ground are the ones we didn't need. That's basically it.
More money we come from, more problems we see.
Keep playing this.
How much you're going to cut from the HUD budget as it relates to housing vouchers. Now, if you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know, Mr. Carson. I don't hold you to things that you don't know. How much are they going to?
Let's just move on and say that I don't want to offer a number because it's subject.
Why would the Secretary of HUD not give the number, the amount that you're cutting from housing vouchers, Mr. Carson?
Because
you're the Secretary of HUD.
Because
you're making the cut.
Because we've already talked about the total amount of the cuts.
Well, the total amount does not help me when it comes to the housing vouchers. I have people who use housing vouchers, and I need to be able to explain to them, Mr. Carson.
I mean, just contemplate for a moment. If Ben Carson's in there and he's doing brain surgery, and the hospital administrator comes down and says, "Hey, I just want you to know, we're cutting 5 to 10, 15% out of the surgery budget." And Carson's like, "Well, wait, did you cut scalpels?" Look, we don't need to get into specifics. Well, wait a second. Am I going to need? Do you have the machine that sucks all the extra blood out? Well, you'll find out when you get in there. I mean, I'm telling you, 15%. That's what we did. We cut the surgical budget. Maybe it was administrative staff. Maybe it was essential tools that you need when you go in there. No, you're going to find out.
Well, first of all, fuck you, Sam.
This guy didn't know anything. And you know what it's indicative of is that this is their game plan. It is total deconstruction of the administrative state in a haphazard manner because it doesn't matter to them. There is no strategy. They just don't believe it should exist. His staffers didn't even say, "Hey, man, look, here's a sheet of paper." The one thing that your job is at this point is knowing what is being cut. That's it. That is literally the only job he has. And they didn't even give him a piece of paper that said like 10% here, 12% here. Like who would do this? Who would it not even occur to when you're going in to meet with Congress? Like, we're making 13% cuts, right? Can you give me just a breakdown of how that comes out? Like, how does that question not come up?
Guys, I think I got this. Al Green's a pretty good singer, but he's a dumb congressman. I think I'll take care of this. Let's just agree to disagree.
It's almost like they didn't even know that he was there. That like he was like, you know what? They told me we were going to lunch. I didn't realize we were stopping here.
Wait, why did not everybody tell me? Okay, I'll answer it. I think you got the right ballpark. $6 billion.
It's insane.
Whatever.
Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos